Right, 28 October 2021, and today is a very special day, a day that many Zimbabweans have been waiting for, a day when there has been movement on the issue of sanctions. Zimbabwe has been under sanctions for over 20 years, and our country has been severely polarized by these sanctions. People have been suffering, people are unemployed, people have left the country to go and live in other countries. Other people have died because of these sanctions. And our country has not developed because of these sanctions. And I would like to appreciate Professor Elena Dohan, who came to Zimbabwe, and she has opened the eyes of many, many people about the nature, the extent, and the gravity of the sanctions that have been put on Zimbabwe. Particularly, she has revealed that the sanctions on Zimbabwe, they are against international law, they are illegal, and they are harming ordinary Zimbabweans. They're preventing our government from providing services, and they're causing corruption to grow in our country. And she has also recommended in very strong terms. So this is not a light recommendation. She has recommended that the United States must remove these sanctions on individuals. The United States must remove these sanctions on corporations, critical organizations in our country that are supposed to help our country to develop. She must remove the United States must remove those sanctions. And she has also recommended dialogue. So I want to quickly show you the clip where she's talking about dialogue. Then I'm going to take it from there, because going forward, the ball is in the court of the United States of America. However, the ball is also in the court of Nelson Chamisa, who is the president of the MDC Alliance. So let's see what Elena Dohan said about dialogue, then we'll take it from there.
I'm calling for a structural dialogue, not only within the country. There shall be a dialogue between the government of Zimbabwe as well as other states. And I was very happy to find out, after talking to the representatives of diplomatic community, that this dialogue has started. I have heard from all of them that they are in the process of negotiation, and that's a good start. Maybe the way forward will be a long one, but the beginning, every road starts with the very first step. The same exists at the national level. As I can observe, there is very high level of polarization in this society as concerns the approach of the problem of sanctions. That's why I call probably we shall forget about the sanctions rhetoric as an advocacy tool. Probably we shall start speak about law, facts, and human rights protection.
Right. Very, very well done, Professor Elena Dohan. She deserves a round of applause from everybody. You can see the passion she has for human rights. She is not talking about politics. She's talking about what is happening on the ground. Everything that we know, the deterioration in our economy, is because of these sanctions. The United Nations, the United States, they need to act. They have been found to be acting outside international law in Zimbabwe. This is not light. This is serious on the United States of America. And I know that the new president, Joe Biden, he is someone who listens. He's someone who is going to take this very, very serious. He's not going to be like the previous president of the United States, Trump, who was going to ignore this. I can assure you that the current administration in the United States, they are going to take this very, very seriously, because the United States does not want to violate human rights. They do not want to harm ordinary people. So this is going to be something very important. You will see something is going to come out of this. This is not just going to be a report. But what I want to talk about today is the role of Nelson Chamisa, because the United States, they're closely watching him. That is what I think is going to be happening here. Chamisa has been avoiding getting into the game. He's been playing outside. He has not been negotiating. So he has not gone into Poland. He has not managed to talk to the current government. He has never met the current president of Zimbabwe. So everything that he's been doing has been from outside. But what Professor Elena Dohan is saying here is that the parties have to engage. And that is where the Americans are going to be looking at Chamisa. Is he a leader or is he a follower? Is he going to create a system? Is he going to be able to go in there and make a change? Because obviously Chamisa doesn't have experience in this. This is a totally new area for him. And they're going to be watching. And as you can hear from the professor there, the government of Zimbabwe is supposed to have dialogue with the United States of America. And there is also supposed to be dialogue inside Zimbabwe. And the dialogue inside Zimbabwe, obviously, will have to include all the key stakeholders. So the polarization that she's talking about is where everyone says their position is the most important position. So Idi Mnangagwa is saying, come to Poland. Chamisa is saying, Poland is a choir. I'm not going to come to a choir. I don't want to talk except if it's only me and Mnangagwa. And then the other people are saying, we also want to talk. What Dohan is saying here is, everyone has to talk. The only solution to this problem that we have in Zimbabwe is through dialogue. And that dialogue is not going to be, not everyone is going to get what they want. So some people are going to have to step down. Some people are going to have to back off. Some people are going to have to compromise so that this whole thing works through. But obviously, the reason why these sanctions were put in at that time was to allow the MDC alliance to get into office, or the MDCT of Tsvangirai. Tsvangirai was supposed to go in because of the sanctions. Things were supposed to get so bad that Tsvangirai goes in. But that hasn't happened. 20 years have passed. People have been suffering. That has changed. The situation has changed. It's no longer about Chamisa going into office. The situation is now about the human rights in Zimbabwe. And if Chamisa does not compromise, if he does not change the position that the MDC has been taking, it means he's going to be part of causing suffering among the people. And this is where he has got a very, very big dilemma. He has to make a change to the way in which he's approaching everything. And I would dare say that Chamisa will have to be the one to make the first move. Because internally, the United States, their position and the position of the MDC alliance have aligned. So there's an alignment. If the United States is going to change their position on sanctions, on what is really the problem in Zimbabwe, that means Chamisa also has to change. And if he doesn't change, it means he's now going to be standing by himself on the side with the position that the sanctions are okay, when the United States and the government are engaging and finding out that there needs to be change. So this is where we have a very, very interesting situation about to develop. And the first move has to come from Chamisa himself. What I would suggest as a way forward is obviously for Chamisa to join Poland, but not to join Poland in the way that other leaders have joined. What I would do if I was Chamisa is I would send my representatives into Poland. So that would be a sign of good faith. If he was to send a delegation to Poland, the invitation is there. If you would agree to send a delegation to Poland and say, once we agree on the framework of the dialogue, then I will come in. And that will be a first step. So dialogue between Chamisa, the government of Zimbabwe, it's critical. And it has obviously to happen within the framework of Poland. The name Poland is Political Actors Dialogue. There's no reason why Chamisa cannot go in there. But obviously he's got conditions. I respect his conditions. I'm sure the government respects his conditions. Every Zimbabwean respects Chamisa's conditions. He had a lot of votes in the 2018 elections. So he's got a right to make those demands. But he cannot afford to talk from outside. And I've always been saying this, you cannot take over a system that you're not part of. And Chamisa is trying to do that. And if you are trying to do that, that's an overthrow. There is no way that he's going to be able to overthrow Mnangagwa and his government, because Mnangagwa is very, very strong, very, very well prepared. There is no way that Chamisa can overthrow the government of Zimbabwe. So he has to work within the current system. Also, Chamisa does not have unanimous and national support. He can be beaten in an election by ZANU-PF. So everyone has to work together. There's no one here who can win from this situation. But the United Nations has spoken. These sanctions are illegal. They're not supposed to be there. They're supposed to be removed. And there has to be dialogue. There has to be a roadmap for removing these sanctions. Let's look at the structure. And when we talk of structure here, I want to look specifically at the opposition, because the dialogue is not only between Chamisa and Mnangagwa. The dialogue is also between Chamisa and other political opposition. Take, for example, Chamisa and Monzora. They don't differ much. They need to have a dialogue. Take Chamisa and the civic society, Chamisa and the churches. They need to have their own dialogue. So I think that is where the structure comes in, to reduce the polarization, because everyone thinks they're right, their position is correct. This is where we need to go. So the dialogue is essential, but it has to be started. It has to be kick-started by Chamisa. If Chamisa is going to be the leader of the opposition side, then he has to bring everyone together. I'm sure if he was to approach Monzora, they would agree, and then they'll face Mnangagwa as one. So this business of fighting continuously as opposition, obviously, is not going to work. It's just going to elongate and prolong the problems in Zimbabwe. Now, let's look at what will happen if Chamisa was going to Poland. If Chamisa was to go into Poland, this will allow the Americans to at least negotiate with the understanding that something is happening on the Zimbabwe side. They'll be able to endorse Poland, because they've obviously been taking the position that if Chamisa doesn't like Poland, they should also not endorse it. And the movement of Chamisa into Poland is the first step, as far as I'm concerned, in everything moving forward. If Chamisa doesn't go into Poland, nothing is going to happen. We're going to have a very, very long period where nothing has happened in Zimbabwe, whereas now we have an opportunity to move forward. Then I want to conclude by saying the sanctions, obviously, as Elena Dohan said, they are not useful. They're harming ordinary people. There should then be consensus in the whole country. All the Zimbabweans should speak with one voice, that these sanctions, they need to go. When she talks about people using the sanctions for advocacy, she's basically speaking to ZANU-PF to say ZANU-PF should stop using the sanctions for campaigning. And I think she's got a point, but ZANU-PF has done a lot. They've managed to sell the position that the sanctions are hurting ordinary people. However, if everyone works together, if everyone says sanctions must go, then the sanctions are taken off the table as a campaign issue. So it's important. That's why Chamisa needs to come out and say sanctions must go. And equivocally, I expect to see Chamisa in a press conference with his leaders saying the sanctions must go, the sanctions are harming ordinary people, the way forward is their removal. So that no one is said to be supporting sanctions. There should be no one who supports sanctions in the country. Hopo Chingono should not support sanctions. Chamisa should not support sanctions. Everyone should say sanctions must go. That day must be now, within this week. People should say, we don't want sanctions. If a person supports sanctions in Zimbabwe, they should be met with opposition everywhere they go. There should be no support for sanctions at all. And then obviously the discussions between the USA and the Zimbabwe government, they should now be in the public domain. There should be a public domain, there should be a proper roadmap to say what exactly are they discussing. In those discussions that they've been having, it mustn't be private. It's a public thing that the United States government, if they're engaging the Zimbabwe government, what's the roadmap? Where are we going to go? Do they want to remove the sanctions? What are the conditions? Are they going to repeal that act, the Zidera Act that is there? Because it's stopping people from coming to invest in Zimbabwe. It's been said officially that Zimbabwe is suffering because of these sanctions. So what is the United States government going to say officially in public? What is the roadmap? What actions need to be taken? Because it was said that you can't punish people, the ordinary population, so that you get reforms. So very, very interesting, as I said, but the first step, as far as I'm concerned, is going to come from Nelson Chamisa. Nelson Chamisa cannot continue to speak from outside. The time has come for Chamisa and the MDC alliance to engage ZANU-PF at close range. And that means he has to go into the game. He has to go there into Poland. He has to make his demands from inside, not from outside. There is no way back from here. If Chamisa continues to support sanctions after the United States, the United Nations has spoken and said sanctions are harming ordinary people, then it means Chamisa is supporting the harming of ordinary people by sanctions. Because then, as long as those sanctions remain, it means they've been called by him. And this is the polarization that was being talked about here. There should be no polarization in Zimbabwe. There should be consensus that the sanctions must go. The economy must not become the fighting ground for politicians. The economy must do well, no matter who is leading. If Mnangagwa leaves, we want the economy to do well. We don't want ZANU-PF to turn around and say, let's sabotage the economy. If Chamisa is in position, if he's leading, the economy should do well. Every Zimbabwean should protect the economy. The economy should do well at all times. The people who support sanctions, they must stop. And we will do well. As long as we all say no to sanctions, there will be no person who can put sanctions on our country. And I always want to take this to the issue of the Taliban. The United States, they negotiated with the Taliban before they left Afghanistan. Through the Trump government, through this current government of Biden, they had a discussion sitting on the table with the Taliban, but they did not sit with the leaders of the Taliban. They sent, the Taliban had a representative on the table. So Chamisa needs to do the same. He needs to have someone on the table in Poland. Whatever platform is available, Chamisa needs to take that platform. The days of saying, I'm not going to sit with you on the table are over. We need these guys to sit down and talk so that this whole situation in Zimbabwe can be resolved. So I think for today, I need to end it here. I didn't want to say a lot today. So let me look at the comments. Let me see if there are any serious comments here. I want to see if there's anyone who makes a serious comment. I want to look at the issue of Poland, the MDC supporters. They've got this view that Chamisa is going to get his own place where he talks. And the problem is the MDC guys don't understand something. Mnangagwa is the president of Zimbabwe. Whether you like it or not, Mnangagwa is the president of Zimbabwe. You cannot expect Mnangagwa to just talk to you if you don't respect him. So, firstly, you have to respect Mnangagwa. President Mnangagwa is your president. Take him that way. Stop all this business of saying, I won elections in 2018 and there's a legitimacy crisis. Drop that demand. That is the first thing that they need to do, to drop. We are 2 years away from another elections, from next 2023 elections. If we continue with this, you're going to have another problem in the next elections. You won't have reforms and you will lose. If there's no reforms, the MDC is going to lose. So forget the past, move forward. MDC supporters, they need someone to help them. And the person that can explain to them is their leaders. The leaders need to show leadership. That's why I'm saying the Americans are looking at Chamisa. Is he a leader or is he a follower? Because if you're a leader, you should be able to sell a change. So this change, that things have changed. We need to go into negotiation mode to achieve our objectives, because you won't achieve those objectives if you do not respect Mnangagwa, if you do not accept him as your president. So that is the first thing. MDC supporters, they need to get off this business of saying we're not going to Poland. Poland is a platform. Political actors dialogue. Go in there, start engaging. Then stop listening to people like Hopper. People like Hopper, they just like likes. They've got no interest at all in the MDC. If Hopper gets an appointment or a position in the next government of ZANU-PF, he's going to go. He's not going to worry about you. The people that we want to talk about here are people that have got an opportunity to lead in the future. Mnangagwa will be gone in 10 years' time. So in 2021, in 2031, Mnangagwa will be gone. He won't be there. But Chamisa will be what? He will be 54 years old. He will still be having a long time ahead of you. He's got a lot of time to do these things. So he needs to start building his foundation. He also needs to start respecting ZANU-PF supporters. Start respecting ZANU-PF supporters. Don't call them names. Engage with ZANU-PF supporters the way you want ZANU-PF supporters to engage with you. Stop this business of having a one-track mind, of thinking your way is the only way. There are actually people who believe in ZANU-PF. There are actually people who believe in MDCT. There are actually people who believe in MDC Alliance. So the MDC guys, at the moment, they need to move from the position that they are in. They are the first ones that need to move. Chamisa needs to make the first move. Then the United States government is going to take the example from his movement. If Chamisa agrees to join Poland, Zimbabwe is on the path for success. Now let's go and look at other comments here. Joshua Mdende, how can Chamisa work with a group of people who are planning to kill him? I just gave you the example of the Taliban. The United States negotiated with the Taliban. I do not want to. I do not want you to underestimate how dangerous the Taliban is. What they've done to women in Afghanistan, and what they've done in the past. But they sat across the table with the United States. They negotiated a deal and they stuck to it. You should be able to negotiate. That's leadership. If you cannot negotiate, you're not a leader. If you're always shouting from the periphery, like what Chamisa is doing now, that shows lack of leadership. You need to get into the action. You need to go in there and face ZANU-PF and make your demands. Then you're a leader. At the moment, he's just an opposition leader. And the Americans, they respect true leadership. If you are doing what Chamisa is doing now, they will not respect you. They are going to end up bypassing Chamisa, just like the way that it happened in Afghanistan. You saw what happened. They just left the Taliban to take over because the guys that were in government at that particular moment, they showed no leadership. They wanted to be held hands every day. They wanted their hands to be held every day. If you're a true leader, you go in as difficult as it is and you make progress. You can't spend 3 years saying the same thing. That shows lack of leadership. And this is where the MDC Alliance need to make that move. Move to Poland. You contested the election. You were a candidate. Going to Poland, you deserve to be there. It's your right to be in there. Now let's look at, I want to look at other, right, John Eddy, Chamisa is not an opposition leader, Ngonzora is a leader of the opposition. Well, I don't want to go into that today, but everyone needs to participate. That's polarization. We need to take away this polarization. Ngonzora and Chamisa were in the same party during the elections. Why can't they talk? So the dialogue should not only be between ZANU-PF and MDC. It should also be between MDC and MDC. Why can't these guys talk among themselves? Right, let's look at Ramai. You look like you don't tire. I'm tired. If I take for you, remember I was very, very sick. If I take for you the amount of tablets I'm taking, and supplements, you feel sorry for me, man, but I have to do this. You know, the passion that I have for a country of Zimbabwe, and the thing that hurts me the most is seeing the suffering among our people. If you come here down the road from my house, every day, there are at least, let me say, 100 girls who stand outside looking for houses to clean. And they always go away without cleaning a house. There are guys who paint houses, who stand outside on the road. Zimbabwe is a shame in this region because of these sanctions. We need to do something. We need to get this sorted. And sometimes I feel like leaving it, but I just think, why can't we do this? Why can't we, as a people, do something about our country? Why can't we negotiate and always have to take these hardline positions and get nowhere? Imagine if people could talk and address the problems in Zimbabwe, where we will be now. We won't be in this position where all of us are outside the country with a rich country like Zimbabwe, which is so underutilized. And I would like to thank Professor Elena Dohan. She got a way of bringing out the issues in a way that is so clear, so interesting to watch. Because as Africans, we've got no one to speak for us. The United States is a very big, strong country. They have been strangling our country for a very, very long time, and they need to release. They need to take away these sanctions from our country. There is no need for the United States to sanction us, especially the ordinary people. The corresponding banks that are living in Zimbabwe, it's got nothing to do with ZANU-PF. The failure of people to invest in Zimbabwe, it's nothing to do with ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF could have their own errors, but the sanctions have to go. We don't want sanctions. Every Zimbabwean must say no to sanctions. And this message must go across the whole country. Anyone who supports sanctions, they must be an outcast going forward. The United Nations have spoken. These sanctions are not right. Now, let's go to the next one. And I want to come to an end now. Apart from sanctions, we can stop corruption for starters, and so forth and so forth. I don't want to go into this tired discussion. Jonathan Moyo, he did very, very well this afternoon. Go to his Twitter, look how Jonathan Moyo addressed the issues of sanctions, of land reform. We've got a lot of issues here, but that's why the dialogue is there. The dialogue is there to deal with the issues. But you can't say, I'm going to strangle you until then we'll remove the sanctions if you change. I do not think that is it. Right. So I want to end it here. And I want to think that we've made a lot of progress as Zimbabwe this week. And we need to talk to each other to get this moving. But the first person to make a move is Chamisa. If Chamisa fails to go into Poland, this thing will not go anywhere. And the reason why I'm saying he must go into Poland is he has to accept and respect President Mnangagwa as the president of Zimbabwe. That is the start. Nothing is going to happen if that doesn't happen. We've said this a long time ago. We've said this when the South Africans came to Zimbabwe. You cannot negotiate with the president of a country without accepting that he's the president of the country. You cannot do that. That's an overthrow. And you can't overthrow ZANU-PF because you don't have the capacity. You don't have the systems. And as I was saying, the Americans respect leadership. They respect a system. And if you don't have a system like what Chamisa is like now, and if you're not part of the system, they're just going to bypass him. They're watching closely what he's going to do now. If he just continues the way he's doing now, mark my word, by 2023, he's going to lose. This statement by Professor Elena Dohan is going to stand. It will never be reversed. These sanctions are illegal. They're harming ordinary people, women, children, vulnerable groups. And America is not going to want to be part of it, to make one person win the election. They will not allow it. And this is why I'm saying everyone now needs to back down, release their grip on their position, and take a new position of compromise. There needs to be a lot of compromise here, and then we need to move forward for the good of the people. Right, I didn't intend to talk for so long. Thank you very much for watching. And I think tomorrow is Friday. We've got business meetings, so we'll take a break. And I hope to find one of my other guests, Senator Kalipani Pogeni. And then on Sunday, we're obviously going to be having Pangana Mhlanga. So let's have all these discussions. If you want to be part of this channel, WhatsApp me on my number here. That is our number. Come over. Let's have a chat. Let's not be people who don't talk. I like people who talk, people who make things clear. If we have a disagreement, let's bring it on the table and talk. And obviously, Chamisa is the first person who needs to move. He needs to move to Poland. If he moves to Poland, he increases his chance of winning the 2023 elections by more than 50%. Because the issue of the sanctions is going to make him lose the election. The United Nations has spoken. Imagine when you continue supporting something that is illegal, harming ordinary people, vulnerable women, children, and other vulnerable groups, destroying the economy, and you continue to support that. No one is going to vote for such a person. So that the first step here, going forward, has to be made by Chamisa. He needs to join Poland, and then he needs to recognize that President Mnangagwa is the president of Zimbabwe. All the other discussions that take place after that, they're going to be very, very easy. Right, good night, and thank you very much for joining me.
Mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice. I know Buddha meso, I know Buddha tebe, I know Kaya Marigi. Kama kwetu tikom, kwetu tikom usasai.
Kamba kwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa paninyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugovane.com. Kamba kwe vanogaya mari vanotara mari vanosiya mari kamba kwe vanotara feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei vanomuterere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei mirai ndikudze kuti chokwadi pano chizere kamba kwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotara straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence
entertainment current affairs and news kamba kwe.com usasarire kamba kwe anogaya mari